Alright, hey guys, this is the video for the review that I gave you today. Remember, everything that I'm doing here is what you need to be writing down as well, or at least checking to make sure that you have the same things. If you have anything that's different from what I'm doing, you need to write it down. I will be checking today or tomorrow in class. Alright? Let's get started on number 1. It says, draw a visual representation that correctly describes the relationships between the sets and subsets of rational numbers. What I saw everyone do in class is they drew a circle and then a circle right next to it like a normal Venn diagram. That's not what we're saying. In your notes, you should have something that looks like this. I know my drawings are terrible, so I apologize for that in advance. But what we're doing is we're categorizing 4 different kinds of numbers. We have rational, we have integers, we have whole numbers, and we have natural, also known as counting numbers. And we got to categorize this into this diagram here. So, we mentioned how the most general kinds of numbers are called rational. These can be fractions, these can be decimals, they can be negative, they can be positive. As long as they're fractions and decimals, these are what rational numbers consist of. They can consist of everything inside of here as well, but as far as what would fit in here and not for the rest of these numbers are primarily fractions and decimals. These can be whole numbers, they can be counting numbers, they can be integers, but the most common characteristics that would tell you rational are fractions and decimals. Integers are your next most specific category. These are going to be negative numbers, and they're going to be counting numbers. So like I can count to 4, and the opposite of 4 is negative 4. I can count to 3, and the opposite of 3 is negative 3. Now these are also can be whole numbers. These can also be natural numbers. But as far as their most specific category is dealing with negative values. Negative values that if they were positive, you could count to. Your next one are whole numbers. And what these are all positive counting numbers, including 0. So 0 is included, 1's included, 2, 3, and so on. Your next one are called natural, which you can't see that, it's right here, or counting. These are only positive numbers that I can count to with my fingers. I could count all the way up to 100 with my fingers if I were patient enough and wanted to count that far. So these are all numbers that I can count to that you know that are normal numbers. They don't have decimals, they don't have fractions. They're only normal whole numbers that are positive. Okay? So rational can be almost anything. It can be fractions, it can be decimals. Integers fit inside of rationals. Whole numbers can be rational. Counting natural numbers can be rational. But the most common characteristic for rational is that they are fractions or decimals. With integers, they can be whole numbers and natural numbers. So these could be positive. But as far as labeling is concerned, integers are negative whole numbers. And then whole numbers are positive or 0 that are normal counting numbers. And then you have counting numbers that are all positive, they just don't include the 0. Okay? We've talked about this now 2 or 3 times. You need to have this diagram memorized. as far as where these descriptions go. Rational, integer, whole, natural. All right. Number 2, a submarine is at depth of, and this is supposed to say negative 1,256.7. If you were listening in class, you would know that. If it rises at a rate of 398.2 feet per hour is a key word. I hope you know this for multiply. At what depth will the sub be after 2 hours? So I'm starting at negative 1,256.7 feet. That just means we're here sea level. My submarine, I don't know how to draw submarines, that's my submarine, is way below sea level at 1,256.7 feet. Okay? But I am rising, my sub is rising. It's going up back towards sea level, 398.2 feet per hour. So I'm going to be adding 398.2 per hour. So multiplied by my hours. And in this case, it's 2 hours. So we're going to do 398.2 times 2. So go ahead and multiply that. 398.2 times 2. It's 4. 796.4. So 796.4 is how much I went up by over my 2 hours. I went up this much. I went up by 796. If I started below sea level at this spot under sea level, 1,256.7 feet. If I went up, that's less feet that I'm under sea level because I'm going back towards shore, which is at a 0 sea level. When I have a negative and a positive, and I'm adding them together, you're actually subtracting and taking the bigger value. So I'm going to do 1,256.7, 796.4. I'm going to subtract those. 0, 6, that's 15, that's 11, that's 0. So that's 460.3 feet. I'm still that much below sea level because I started so much under sea level and I didn't quite get back up it yet. I didn't quite get back up to sea level, not in the 2 hours that it's talking about in my question. So I am negative 460 feet, negative 460.3 feet. That's where I'm at right now. Okay, I multiplied this number by 2, because that's how many hours I was in the sub. And then I figured out how much closer I got to sea level, because this is where I started. And to do that, you would subtract the 2 numbers. All right. Number 3, a triangle. So I'm going to draw a triangle. This one has an angle of 93.9. This one's 21.6. And this one, we don't know what it is. It's missing. A triangle has angles that measure 93.9 degrees, 21.6 degrees. Write an equation that could be used to find x, the measure of all of the third angle. So x is my missing angle. I don't know what it is. In your notes, it tells you that when you add all of your angles up, you get 180 degrees. Now this tells you to write an equation. I want you to go one step further. I want you to actually solve for x. So the way you do that is you add these numbers together and you get, I'm going to do this over on the side here. That's 5. That's carry my 1. That's also 5. That's 115. 115.5 plus my x equals 180 degrees. We've talked about when you solve for x, you have to work backwards and do the opposite. And the opposite of a positive 115.5 is a negative 115.5. This goes away, equals 0. X equals, make sure you line up your decimal and make sure everything's filled in, so add a 0 here. 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 5 is 4. 7 minus 1 is 6. X is 64.5 degrees. We did number 4 together. Better have written that down. We did it in class, so I'm not going over it. I'm going over number 5. This, I hope we know what we're doing here. We've been going over it for weeks now. Let's figure out what we need to do. We go backwards when solving for x. So our order of operations, we go backwards, starting with adding and subtracting. I see my adding, I do the opposite, which is subtracting. This cancels out. You get 7x. Here's where everyone's making the mistake that I saw in class today who were able to get this. If I'm starting with 9 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I am making it 12 more negatives. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These do not cancel out. Only positives and negatives cancel out to 0. So these are just a total of all my negatives, which if you were to count is 21 negatives. 21 negatives. When the signs are the same, when I have a negative plus more negative or a negative minus a number, that's making it more negative because it's already starting at a negative number and I'm making it even more negative. So I'm going to add those numbers because it's making it more negative. I'm going to keep it negative. A lot of people were wrong right here, and we got to make sure that's right. And then you divide by 7. Now, I showed you the plus minus. In this case, we didn't need any pluses, any positives, because these were both negatives. That's for adding and subtracting. When it comes to multiplying and dividing, this is where you use the triangle method. I got a negative divided by a positive results in a negative answer. So when you graph it, you would pick a point, and since it's exactly, my answer is exactly 3, I draw a closed dot. Alright? We did number 6. You should have it. If you're listening in class, you have it. So that's all you had to do was 1, 2, 3, and 5 because I did all the other ones with you in class, so this should be all that you need. If you are stuck on any of these, you need to talk to me in class tomorrow so that we can work on fixing some of these issues. We're going to do some other stuff in class tomorrow that will also be on the test. Bye.